What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. Yeah.
Still there? Everybody okay?
I think I froze for a second.
Good to
Again,
see
I'm
you.
Matt Harmon, and welcome to the Yahoo
I'm
Fantasy
Nate.
Forecast, presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season. And joining me to talk a little ball today is Nate Tice. Nate, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. Good to see you. I'm very interested in the subjects today, and I've never really talked to you about board games. Are you into board games or not? Are you because you got a little competitive edge to you. You like solving problems. You like looking at numbers.
I am a normal board game player.
That's
Let me
fair.
kind of put it like that. I will say, the like the memes that go around of the person that it's like, oh man, I'm just at a normal gathering of with my friends, and now they want to explain this really complicated board game to me, and I have a hard time listening. I am kind of that guy in a group setting, especially if there's any sort of social drinking involved in the
Yeah.
proceedings. But I do enjoy a good board game for sure.
As an aficionado, I've learned I have the spectrum of board games. So I am prepped for people of your ilk, the ones that maybe with a beverage or two, or like kind of wandering, so I can explain games. I try to find as many games I can explain in like 2 minutes, where it's like, hey, if you don't get this one, you got to get it. But why I'm saying all this is I bought a couple new board games last night, which I probably won't play within 3 years, until my son turns into a little bit older. But yeah, I'm very excited about it. So I had to talk to somebody because I'm ashamed to admit it to my wife right now.
Well, honestly, Nate, I think you said you're excited about some of these topics today. I'm not so excited to talk about a couple of these topics today. There's a few I like, but two particular offenses we're going to be focusing on today, I am dreading a little bit. So I honestly might rather spend the next 90 minutes breaking down board games with you than talking about two of these situations in particular. But nobody would like that show. Nobody would listen to that. As we do here every single week, for the Fantasy Film Room, we dive into trending fantasy topics here. In our first segment, we look at them from a full deep dive angle. Then we get into what Nate is nerding out about each and every week. And then we finish the shows previewing Thursday Night Football. And if you listened to the show yesterday, you know that I came to a dark realization that we were going to have to talk about the Arizona Cardinals offense. We're actually spending more time than usual on Thursday Night Football this week because the Cardinals are regrettably a topic that we have to dive into. And it's good to have Mr. Arizona Cardinals himself here for that particular segment. But let's waste no more time. Let's get into it. Let's dive into the Fantasy Film Room. Welcome to the Fantasy Film Room, presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season with another year of Toyota game day giveaways, from NFL shop gear to even Brock Purdy's favorite Sequoia. Toyota is giving fans a chance to win big. Visit toyota.com/NFL to learn more. Okay, for today's deep dive of the Fantasy Film Room, we are going to be talking about the Atlanta Falcons offense, Nate Tice, because I am obviously a big Drake London guy. I know you are as well. I had some very big, bold predictions on Drake London this year that are not trending the right way. So I wanted to investigate why that is, because the Falcons so far have been one of the more surprising teams in the NFL to me, not just from a fantasy production standpoint, but they've kind of been good defense, bad offense. Even though they did just get blown out 30-0 by the Carolina Panthers. That was one of the most surprising results of the week. And I don't know that it's gotten enough press. So let's talk Atlanta Falcons here. I've got a lot of stats. I got a lot of things I want to hit on here today. But Nate, just what's been your overall vibe so far through 3 weeks with the Falcons offense?
Bijan Robinson is still incredible. He is still, I still think this team can run the ball consistently, whether it's Robinson or Tyler Algier. I think that's their bread and butter. I think that's exactly what they should be focusing on. They're 7th in early down run rate. They're 8th in early down rushing success rate, despite no quarterback threat, and 9th in explosive run rate. So pretty good, but a step back from last year, which was literally, if you looked at success rate, tied for the best run game in the past 20-ish years. I believe I looked up till 2002. They're tied with a 2004 Chiefs team, I believe. But the issue is the passing game is wildly inconsistent. And it's also, I feel like this offense is very siloed. This offense has a lot of tendencies, a lot of tells, especially on early downs. And early downs, first and second down, are treated wildly different than third and fourth down in the NFL. Two totally different worlds. And really, you can splice it even further and go first and 10 is the same as second and 1 to 6, and second and 7+ is its own situation if you want to get even more into it. But this team does not. I just mentioned the run rate, which is they're always going to be a top 10 rushing team. They know that. Like, this is how it's built. But they don't run play action. And I see you have a similar statistic on our notes, but I actually was looking up the same exact thing. Right now, if you just looked at early downs, this team is one of the lowest. Real quick, the lowest team on early down play action rate. You looked at the Rams, and you looked at anybody else. I know this is, I think the stat that you have is all downs, but early downs, just first and second down. So tying in with their run game. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't make any sense to me. This is how you should be built. This entire offensive ecosystem. Now, we talk about this all the time, is being efficient and being explosive, finding ways to be both. They have to create explosives through the air on top of what they do in the run game. Otherwise, you kind of, it hinders yourself because you have safeties creeping up. You have all these types of things where the offense gets really tight. And right now, they just feel very siloed. If they are in pistol, pretty heavy run rate. If they are in shotgun, pretty heavy pass rate, which teams have gotten away with in the past. If you even look at like the Rams, they're kind of similar. But play action is something. And I know sometimes play action is just that magic wand, like run more motion, do more play action.
Yep.
But in this instance right here, this is a perfect example of a team that needs to do more to tie in their entire offense. And that's just a schematic thing. But I also think Penix has been pretty inconsistent as a thrower, especially accuracy wise, especially where he's throwing the ball. But we can get more into that. But right now, it's a very siloed offense is the best way I could put it.
Siloed is absolutely a great way to put it. And you mentioned some of the stats that I had here. The first one I saw this week from Joe Patrick, who covers the Atlanta Falcons. I thought this is one of those things when you're watching the team, you kind of feel it. You feel it on film, and then you see it laid out statistically, and you're like, oh my God, it's even more stark than I thought. So again, this is from Joe Patrick, who covers the Falcons. Some startling Falcons splits through 3 weeks, according to Pro Football Focus. Only one pass attempt from under center so far, 93% pass rate out of the shotgun, over 70% run rate out of the pistol, as Nate was just talking about there, 4th lowest play action rate in the NFL, that's all downs, and then the lowest deep pass rate in the NFL at 4%. Woof. Siloed is definitely.
This is how stark it is that Joe Patrick tweeted this. You found the notes, and I was looking this up individually before. We usually have our own individual docs, and then we have like a shared doc that we share kind of relevant notes on. And when I opened that up, I was like, I looked up the exact same things. Like these were that because just on rewatch for me, that's what stood out to me. So I thought it was so funny. I was like, oh, I looked at the exact same notes, exact same stuff, pistol, shotgun, deep passes, play action rate, because it's stark when you watch this team.
And you've talked about this, like when a team is predictable and they have tells and tendencies like this, it's just, I don't want to say you're DOA, but you're walking in with a pretty big disadvantage especially on the offensive side of the football. Like if you can be predictable, you can be beat pretty easily, especially when you don't have a quarterback who's, I mean, the Bengals at times have been predictable and siloed, but Michael Penix is, I think at his best, probably not Joe Burrow, and certainly right now is not playing like Joe Burrow, so which we'll get into that. This is a random thought I had about this because there were times last year when the Falcons were a little bit siloed in terms of run and pass, but I thought that had a lot to do with Kirk Cousins' lack of ability to move and his coming back from the Achilles. And I thought at times last year they actually got, especially when Penix was in there, they did a better job of blending the run and the pass game. Like he did have a lot of just more play action, more under center stuff. I thought that would kind of be the way. Yeah, more boots. I thought that'd be kind of the way they were trending this year. But to me, it almost feels like they've leaned into the player they think Michael Penix is in a way as this more like vertical player. I was charting Drake London today. We'll get into some more Drake London stuff here in a second. But last season, he ran a dig route on 27% of the routes I charted, which is like the high, and jigs and posts and stuff like that. It's one of the highest ever
Yeah.
that I've ever collected in the entire 10 plus years I've been doing this now. Just in week 3 against the Panthers, a game where you think they'd want to be on their stuff because they're getting blown out. He ran 10.3% of those routes combined. Like that's a big drop off. And to me, it feels a little bit like he's run a lot of curls and verticals, more straight line stuff. That's what I kind of think they think Penix is. It reminds me a little bit, Nate, of last year, and I could be dead wrong about all this. It's kind of just guessing, but I feel like last year with the Colts, my thought was you're going to take the Gardner Minshew offense from 2023 and you're going to drop a much more talented physically quarterback in it in Anthony Richardson, and you're going to go to work. And then that offense did not feel that way through the time that Anthony was under center. I think it lended more into those like vertical deep shots and things that Richardson with his arm talent would theoretically unlock for you. Obviously we know how that ended in Indianapolis. Right. That's a little bit how the Falcons feel to me right now, is that they've changed their offense a little bit to what Penix should be good at, but I think it's kind of missing the forest for the trees here a little bit in the whole view of the whole thing.
I agree with that. I do think they really think he's Matthew Stafford. And if any national reporter that went to Atlanta this summer was like, oh, they think he's Matthew Stafford. It was just like, that's what they beat the drum. If you look at Zach Robin's coaching history, he hasn't had a lot of exposure to professional quarterbacks outside of LA, which was like Goff and then Stafford. So he's like, it's gotta be one or the other, right? So Matthew Stafford it is.
Kirk was our Goff and this is our Stafford. Yeah.
You see that sometimes, maybe the Rolodex isn't that deep. But it's when I watch this offense right now, like when they run play action, when they do run it, there's just, I talk about this all the time. This is the Rodgers thing right now with Pittsburgh. When you run play action, you want to attack over the middle because that is who gets affected by play action, is the intermediate players and the safeties. They are the ones that they're the run force players. So they get affected by the fake run. So when I'm watching these plays, he's always pushing to the outside. And that was Penix's thing in college. This is why I was lower on him, along with being older and all that. And it was just everything's to the outside. And so I looked it up. This is him off of play action. And you could just see it all outside, basically columns right down the numbers. Yeah. There is nothing really over the hashes or even near the hashes. And then if you look at Stafford, who he can dice it up anywhere, but he is one of the best in-breaking throwers in the NFL. You look at his heat chart, there's plenty of everywhere. There's stuff over the middle, there's stuff to the outside. And so I pulled it up, just going from Stafford. No, that's still that's still Penix. That's up there. I have these memorized now, but there's still Stafford that just is more spread out. There's more stuff over the middle. Think of Puka Nacua catching and running with the ball. That's what these offenses are built on. And I looked at all the kind of disciples of maybe the McVay part of the branch of the Shanahan tree. So the Rams right now in just 2025 are second in early down play action rate. The Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, 8th in early down play action rate. Liam Cohen, 15th in early down play action rate. Okay. Who are the offenses that are, kind of struggling from this tree? The Texans, 28th in early down play action rate. Falcons, dead last. I think 31st is the Eagles. 30th is the Bucs, who are, kind of a little mid ground right now. But it, that they have so many injuries that I'm waving away a lot with the Bucs right now until they get healthy.
Totally
but
fair.
I just look a lot at that. And it's like, it seems like the Texans and the Falcons kind of took the wrong lessons from this offense or from this offensive system, or they're just knowing maybe what Penix is and what is not. And so they're like, well, he's not really comfortable doing that. He's most comfortable passing out of the shotgun. That's why we don't go under center. That's why we're so heavy in pistol. And I think the blending of pistol has been decent, but shotgun being so heavy pass skewed, they're just not getting anything that's attaching to each other. There's nothing flowing together. It is, we're in shotgun. Boom, we have a wing tight end, pass. Okay, we are in pistol and we got a wing tight end, this person, run. Like, just I can tell, and I've just watched 3 games, and this is what it was last year. But here's the 24 and early 25 Stafford heat map. You can just see all that going right down the pipe. And that's just, I just watched this offense, and it feels like Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod get a little too many targets, considering they have Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who I think looks like the best he's looked in a few years. Mm-hmm. And you're watching these plays. There's Penix attacking comebacks and outbreakers to the outside, all outside the numbers. But then Drake London on the play and Kyle Pitts are running a dig and a drag over the middle of the field. So he's not even looking at where they're kind of like putting them on the play.
Yeah.
So that to me is coaching. Okay, if this guy only wants to throw that, all right, freaking Drake London, run some comebacks. Like you're gonna be the primary now. Even if that wasn't the primary with Kirk, it's the primary with Penix. That comes with adjusting for your player. So yeah, it just feels siloed, hodgepodge, and just even though there are some good elements, that it is frustrating in the passing game right now.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, they've obviously had some injuries at the wide receiver position. Mooney missed a chunk of time in the offseason. Yeah. They kind of like almost threw him under the bus in a way where they say he's like got to play better.
Did you see that?
He's got to be. Yeah.
They said, I've never seen him take himself out of so many plays. I think Zach Robinson said.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, there's a weird vibe right now. Let's also I don't think we've talked about this yet, but they fired the receiver coach. In like late September. And they're doing the thing where like, all right, well, the play caller is going to come down to the sideline. That's usually like the last line of defense. We're bringing the play caller down here.
So
exactly
grasping at everything.
I will never forget the conversation that you, Charles, and I had after night one of the NFL draft, walking back from the office at Yahoo, the studios to the hotel, and kind of saying that it was a great walk. Hell of a walk. Except I think I almost got hit by one of those Waymos, but other than that. But that was on me, to be clear. That was on me, to be clear. That was on me. That was on me. Not the Waymo. That was not the robot's fault. That was my fault. Right. To our AI overlords, that was my fault. Anyways, I think that when you look at the what we were talking about was you look at this team and they want to present themselves like this Rams, smart, forward-thinking organization, but then they behave like the Saints, and there's DNA with New Orleans with Terry in the front office, Terry Fontenot, the GM, but then Raheem Morris kind of presents themselves like they're this Rams smart, forward-thinking organization, but they're so reactionary in a very New Orleans-esque way, and I think sometimes like the worst parts of McVay is that he can be reactionary. Great coach, maybe the best coach in the NFL, but I think he can be a little reactionary at times. Yeah. And it's like kind of those two worst instincts are playing into each other here. Where you're firing the coach, you're bringing the coach down, firing the receiver coach, you're bringing the offensive coordinator down from the booth. I don't know, that part of it's just weird. And the Mooney comment was strange, but again, he's a guy who had the injury all of training camp. Drake London got the shoulder in week 1, so maybe there's some injury related thing to all of this, but definitely feels weird from just a role allocation, like a spacing part of it. I wonder too, Nate, speaking of injuries and speaking of being reactionary, if maybe they're like almost overcorrecting for the fact that Caleb McGarry, their right tackle, and his backup Storm Norton, this is a big talking point, got injured in that kind of gap period between the end of preseason and week 1. I get it's a big injury, but it almost feels like kind of things have completely flipped, maybe because they're worried about Penix's blind side because he's a left-handed quarterback being open there and being a potential problem, because this team has really changed from a tendency perspective just with their personnel grouping. In 2024, they were an 11 personnel team on 86.2% of their plays. That was the most in the NFL, number 1. They were in 12 personnel on 10.4%, 30th last year. Then here in 2025, 58% 11 personnel, 20th among all teams. They're 18th on passing plays too. So it's not just because they run the ball, which obviously they are a great rushing team. And 38.5% 12 personnel rate, which is 5th in the NFL, and in 12th on passing plays for 12 personnel too. But what's weird about that is that, yes, Kyle Pitts is running a route on 90.5% of the dropbacks, which is a big jump from last year. And his routes as a true like inline tight end have gone up. But the tight end too, Charlie Warner, is 8th on the team in route participation, just 15.5%. He's truly just there to block. And
he is.
I think that's part of my theory that they're almost like overcompensating for the fact that their tackle is injured, because they're taking one of the 3 receivers off the field, which then brings Drake London's slot rate down. You can't weaponize him in the same way in that kind of Puka Nacua-esque role. Because you're so concerned about the pass protection part of this. So I don't know. There's just a lot going on with this offense, and a lot of. Am I being too alarmist to say there's a little bit of alarm bells going off with this?
No, there's definitely is. And I mean, firing a receiver coach for no personal, conduct. Maybe they're just saying marching orders and just, keeping it clean, but that's huge red alert. And we're getting skunked by the Panthers, who, I mean, it was just sloppy. There's no consistency to the play. There's anything, there's maybe two guys running similar routes or near each other. Penix maybe was progressing too quickly sometimes, or not at all at other times. Like, he just feels like he has kind of like, especially last Sunday, which again might just be one of his worst games, but it's just one of those things where it's like everything felt like off. Everything just felt late, or I just came off and I read the wrong side, or I committed to that too early pre-snap. And like the Warner stuff is like, it is interesting run game wise. Like, it really does help him out run game wise. But again, that leads to the silo-ness. Like, I'm curious actually what the splits are even when they get into personnel groupings, because that's a whole nother thing teams look at. But you want it, like we always talk about, Drake London's the ideal power slot. And they did some Nacua-like things against the Panthers where they were motioning him in, have him fit up and block and do all that stuff. But again, this ties into, pun intended, this ties into what I would say about what the Rams, and the difference with the Rams is when they do that look and they have Puka Nacua fitting up and blocking a safety that's down there, they run a play action that looks exactly the same. Same with the Lions, who I talked about it on Tuesday on Football 301, was they run this play duo and then they run a play action off of duo, because that's what they've been running all game. And I know it seems like, oh no, duh, but that's what the Falcons are missing right now. No, like even the bootlegs they run don't tie into the runs that they are running. So that becomes a tell and a tendency. All 10% of the times they do it. I will say though, I do want to come back to Pitts, because eye test wise, he just looks faster, more fluid. He's also blocking a lot better, which is huge. You just always have to remember how freaking young he is. But it's his rookie year. I sent this over. I like looking at 15 miles an hour or over on next gen stats. His rookie year was 16.2%. Absolute freak, 20 years old, just all-time type of athlete. Hurts his knee the next year, midway through season, give or take. And you can tell he was kind of literally and figuratively dragging him a little bit. And it looks like he's back. I'm not saying all the way to rookie year back, but at least 90-something% there. And so he went from 16.2%, 15 miles an hour over his rookie year, and now it's back over 15%, which is really encouraging, considering that thing dipped last year to below 12%. So, and that's pretty significant, because that's just not plays that he's wide open and catching and running. That's just every time he's running the ball or running on a route and everything. So I do think that he has a little bit more promise, but I just think the offensive flow is just going to be hard to get him the ball right now, because where does the tight end work? Over the middle. Where does Penix not throw? Over the middle. So hopefully we get some outbreakers and sail routes in his world sometime soon.
Yeah, this isn't like a perfect distillation of throwing over the middle of the field, but right now Michael Penix is 27th in passes between the numbers this year, out of 32 quarterbacks with 50-plus dropbacks this year. Those plays have actually been pretty good. 11th in success rate and second in completions of 10-plus yards among those 32 quarterbacks. It's just, this is what we come back to all the time. It's less about with I've started to say this a lot over the years with quarterbacking. It's not so much about the plays that you make; it's about the plays that you don't take. That to me, what you're leaving on the bone there, that has been present with Michael Penix. And again, to me, my thought and my optimism about Drake London was that we were going to kind of have some of the same deployment and usage of him last year. But then we were going to add this second dimension, which is those outbreaking routes and the sail routes off play action and stuff like that, where him and Michael Penix and Drake London were just on the freaking money late last year. Well, not always, because Michael Penix is not always consistently on the money. I shouldn't say it that way. But when the plays hit, the plays were really, really good. So again, coming into this year, last season, Drake London was in the slot overall on 28.9%. With Michael Penix, he was actually 41.2%, because the target rate was so absurd when he was in the slot. He was getting targeted on 34.4% of his routes, 37.1% with Penix. This year, it's down to 21.4% targets per route run in the slot, and he's just playing less in the slot than those games with Michael Penix, 33.7%. Because of that 12 personnel stuff. And I agree with you that Pitts does look good, and he might never end up being this, transformative, generational, whatever word you want to put on it, prospect, but he looks, the proof is in the pudding. Like they were not playing him at the end of last year. They're actually playing him this year. It's it's just very weird that they go from this 11 personnel heavy team to now they're very 12. It just feels like, what are you? You know, like Atlanta Falcons, besides like in the passing game specifically, because I do like the run game, but really that also comes back to the entire offense. Because like, what are you? Like, do these two things marry together, and what are you really trying to do here?
That's just what it feels like. That's why that word siloed always just comes back, because it's just like, I do think they got a quarterback that, you know, when he turns his back, his feet can get out of whack, and that's why he's actually kind of goes downhill. So that kind of limits the play action stuff. And really throwing on the move, he's okay at throwing on the move, but I don't know. This is an offense again that it thrives off that kind of stuff, and thrives off kind of having a more fluid athlete, maybe a looser, more athletic athlete back there, you know, as be able to throw on the move. That's why McCarthy, even though he's playing terrible, did get more love from this kind of offensive system, because you're saying that throwing on the move is such a big part of it. So for me, like Penix, to me, the comparison I've kind of come to is that he's more like Jay Cutler, which is again outbreakers and stuff to the outside and big targets. They have the big targets. They have London and Pitts, and okay, you're going to build your passing game around that. Even Bijan is a bigger running back underneath. But I do think that, like, all right, now we got to get the guys on those routes. I mean, there was one route he targeted Mooney. I really want to say it was third down, and they ran mirrored concept, which means that it's the same on both sides, like a mirror. So they each run a deep comeback, and on that it was like out and then a big comeback, heavily protected. And Penix takes Mooney's side, even though London's on the other side as the X, running the exact same route with more space. And to me, that's just like, that's knowing your matchup. Like, that to me is very weird. Like, if I'm running mirrored routes and we get single coverage, are you taking Darnell Mooney coming off injury, or am I taking Drake London, potential, you know, Pro Bowl quality receiver that, you know, has got over 1,000 yards? Like, I know who I'm taking. So that's really curious to me. It's like, what are you guys trying to like even get through to this guy? You know, I'm not blaming it all on Penix, but it's kind of one of these things where I'm like, do you guys know who your best players are? Okay, design every play. We talk about the Seahawks with JSN and just anybody in the Shanahan Kubiak offense. It's not like the 49ers the last couple of weeks have been like, you know, Luke Farrell, you know, time to get those Kittle targets. No, Ricky Pearsall is our best freaking player. So guess where all the targets are going? Ricky Pearsall. Like, it's just, I don't know. It just, to me, it just seems like, okay, we draw this play. Okay, the ball went there. Okay, but as opposed to putting the players in the right spots. And I think the route stuff that you keep talking about is kind of like one of those canary in the coal mine kind of things, like where it's like, okay, well, are you guys able to tie this all in, or is it just happenstance? Or is, you know what I mean? Like, it just happened that way, as opposed to it was a clear thought and a clear philosophy that they had.
Yeah. And I don't know.
Other than that, how's the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
You're exactly right. So
because they're close,
really
like they have the personnel to make this work. That's kind of frustrating. I think they can at least be like above average. Like, I'm not saying top five offense, but 14th, 12th, I think they have the personnel and the horses to do that, but I just don't think they are blending it right now.
That's what bothers me right there, is what you just said, is that they have the players. Like, I've seen it with my eyeballs. I watched you guys do it for the vast majority of last season. And this was a productive, successful offense last year. From a success rate standpoint, it was good. You know, they were like a top 15 offense in the NFL from a success rate standpoint, with hobbled Kirk Cousins. And then at the end of the season, they got some really good showings from Michael Penix, where what was Michael Penix doing in that stretch? He was pushing it downfield. They're not even throwing downfield very often this year. No. Like, that's another, and I get it. Like, Bijan, we got to keep coming back to this. Like, Bijan's awesome.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. And like, I don't think there's any reason that they should get away from the run game, or that should get away from weaponizing Robinson in the passing game, because he's awesome. He's great. Speaking of how great he is, it actually did dawn on me. I'm pretty sure the Falcons were one of our teams that we talked about when we were talking about fantasy busts, like the difference between offenses that were really high in ADP rankings and where they were projected to score. And because the Falcons had 2 top 20 overall players, they were really high in the ADP rankings, but nobody expected them to be like a top 15 offense based on projections. Yeah. I'm like, well, we've got one guy that's crushing it and one guy that's not. And maybe that was actually an instructive exercise that we put together, Nate. So there is that. That's bothering me a little bit, considering I made the big bet on the guy that's not crushing it right now. But so I'm not saying they need to get away from some of this Bijan in the pass game or the run game or anything like that. But it's just, last year when Penix was under center, they were throwing these heaters to Drake London down the field. And even, Mooney was a little banged up then, but there were times where he's obviously popped off as a vertical threat for this team. And now it just feels so different, which to me, it's either just something is off from the coaching angle, or they are really freaked out about the protection and specifically that right tackle position, and maybe almost overemphasizing it, which I think you can kind of see with the fact that they're blocking tight end on the field so much, not running any routes, and maybe there's something to that. But it's like, great, we have these not max protect looks, but these extra protection looks, and we're still not getting any meat off that bone.
Yeah.
And we just got rocked by the Panthers. And I think that was just a bad Penix game. So I kind of want to end it on this. Does this get any better? Like, do you think this changes? And what's your level of concern on just Michael Penix being able to handle that if they even do start to pull some of these levers that we're talking about?
I think Penix can still be a starting quarterback, but I'm kind of more betting on my pre-draft evaluation of him about what he can and cannot do. I think it has to be a specific way you play him, and right now they're just not doing it. I think they want him to be something, and they just keep trying to tell themselves. You brought it up, but it's like you're telling the story about us walking from the office, and that's what it feels like. At one point, it was, okay, we got our Mahomes, because Terry Fontenot had told a story about how the Saints missed out on Patrick Mahomes when he was there, even though Sean Payton identified him. And it's come out that Sean Payton was never even drafting him anyways. He was going Marshawn Lattimore the whole way. So, I love revisionist history. And then they went, well, no, actually, we have our Jordan Love, because now we have two quarterbacks, and we're on the Packers plan, and we're going to sit there for 3 years. Okay. So you're Jordan Love, and then they played him right away as a rookie. Okay, cool. Even though Jordan Love was 4 years younger, I think, when he got drafted than Penix as well. All right, and then now it's Matthew Stafford. And to me, I understand what they were trying to say with the Stafford stuff, where he's not a big scrambler. He's going to be a big game hunter down the field. Well, okay, he's not a big scrambler. I think he's just always going to be a fine scrambler. The 4.4 40 was where they run 38 yards there. But I also just, when I'm watching it, where's the big game hunting? Watch the 2-minute drill against the Panthers. Panthers defense, even if they're improved this year, is not better than 20th in the league. That's why I think I'm pretty fair in saying that this year. He's in a 2-minute drill. They're already down. They got these clean looks, clean soft coverage looks, and he keeps immediately going to the check down. That's actually where Kyle Pitts got a couple of his catches. It was like he had clean dig looks if he just hangs one more second. And to me, that's just not a guy. It's like, if a guy, you got to play how you win. And to me, Penix is going to be that high wire act. You can maybe get a Jay Cutler type out of him, where you get enough explosive plays, and that's what makes it work, because he's going to miss a couple underneath things. And right now it's like, well, if you're not pushing the ball, why do I have you out there? Because it's like, if you're not accurate enough to be consistent in the underneath stuff, you got to hit the highs sometimes on the high lows. And right now that's just what's missing. So that's what I was discouraged about him as a prospect, was he was not very accurate over the middle. He lacked anticipation, and he has a great arm, but he's always that second late. That's where the Byron Leftwich comparison came from. He's just always that second late on stuff, but then he just fires a fastball. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it leads to a spray. So right now I'm just kind of, I would say a little pessimistic. I am, but I do think there's a starter somewhere there. It's just, it's just not going to be scheme proof like I think they think it is.
Yeah, I think they need to adjust just their thoughts on this whole thing. They've always been a little over their skis with what they've been selling Michael Penix as. We talked about it on 301. Charles kept harping on it, that they didn't play him in the preseason, all that stuff. It just, I think,
it's another thing. Yeah, sorry.
I think they've completely forgotten that this is a guy that started 6 NFL games. Great. He had a lot of action in college. That's cool. But I think they've got to dial that back. And I think from a fantasy standpoint, I'm definitely dialing back my expectations of what Drake London can be this year until we see this get fixed. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I don't think he's going to be terrible. In fact, I still think he might be a reasonable, buy low, just because the he's great. The volume stats are there, whatever. But the reality is until this stuff gets fixed, all of those high-end range of outcomes where I had him as 10th overall, bold prediction, he could be a Triple Crown winner, that's out the window now. I'm not shooting for that. I'm hoping to recoup second round value on him, which might happen, but he also might go down as kind of not a big oh, you took him and it crushed your fantasy season, but it might have been like a small loss as a second round pick. And again, that doesn't ruin you, but it does mean you have to adjust in kind of how you're approaching this. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Drake London stuff based on this conversation. I don't know. I just came away from that game in week 3 pretty discouraged, and even more discouraged than when you start going through all of the stats. Maybe we're overreacting. Maybe I'm overreacting here. I hope so. I do also want to give credit to JC Horn. This is back-to-back weeks where I think he's had really good games. And he's not like a travel shutdown corner. He didn't like travel with Harrison in week 2. He didn't travel with Drake London in week 3. But there's just some opportunities where that guy clearly, they paid him. They showed a lot of faith in him. And when he's healthy, and especially this year, I think just he's like clicked and closed on these zone coverage plays where he's just taken a window away where I think the quarterback expects it to be there. And that has shown up. So Panthers defense still not good, but JC Horn probably their best player and has played really well to start the year. So just want to actually give the defensive players some shout out every now and then. Yeah. I think that we got to do that there. So yeah, that's my state of the state with the Drake London stuff. I know people want to talk about it. So that is why we did a little deep dive on the Falcons, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have the things that Nate is nerding out about. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we are back. It is time, as we do every week here on the Fantasy Film, to talk about the things that Nate is nerding out about. And we got a couple of run games to talk about here. Nate Tice, give us the first team that you're nerding out about right now.
Oh, boy. I'm going to start with the team that's first in early down running back success rate, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, baby. The Minnesota Vikings with Jordan Mason, the sexiest running back in the NFL, as they call him. But they got a little bit of the big cat Bengals bump. You know, a lot of big cat defenses aren't the best right now. Jaguars are looking okay, actually. But it's this run game right now is exactly kind of what I envisioned. Having Christian Darrisaw came back, their left tackle, which was a boom. It really helped. It really helped out Donovan Jackson, who unfortunately now is injury is out for a few weeks. But Donovan Jackson was looking excellent. Ryan Kelly has faced some injuries as well, but this is what I was envisioning with this team. Envisioning a little bit better play from JJ McCarthy, but even with Carson Wentz in there, who played I would say average, it still looked so much better. Yes, going against the Bengals defense, which is just going to be a target for anybody. I think starting fantasy from this point forward, them and the Cowboys defense, just start. Yeah. But it really this was exactly what I thought this team needed. I thought this is why they went out and added these offensive linemen that even now are injured. They still have, it's not what they were going back to like last year. Now Justin School is not playing at left tackle right now at the beginning of this year. Cam Robinson's not at left tackle like the end of last year. They actually have some horses now. So I do think that this team is turning a corner as far as like what this version of their offense is. And I think this is going to be the steadiest part because I know what Carson Wentz is. He's going to have some highs. He's going to have some big throws. He's also going to take some sacks. He's going to have some lows. But I do think that the steady beat of this offense will be the run game, especially now with Jordan Mason, who is exactly that. He is Mr. kind of steady beat at running back. I believe our friend Danny Kelly from The Ringer called him like a Toyota truck. Just like, you know what you're getting. You just kind of know what you're getting with it. It's not sexy, but you know what you're getting. And so even with Aaron Jones before he comes back, I'm really digging what's going on in this run game because it's kind of exactly what I pictured.
Well, as a proud owner of a Toyota truck, I will push back on it not being sexy. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I personally feel pretty damn sexy.
What kind of truck does Brian Dable drive? I gotta check that one out actually right now.
His is way lifted. Okay, let's just.
Oh, it's a Ford. Oh yeah, it's the one with the big Ford. Yeah. Never mind. Yeah. Way lifted is right.
Let's just leave it at that. I don't need. Okay, that's enough. Anyways,
you don't need a lift. You don't need a step stool over there.
No. My wife. That's another topic of conversation.
Sure.
She's
better.
Constantly launching herself into the truck. But anyways, on the Vikings run game specifically, I think that it looks a lot like how I was hoping it was going to. And, when we weren't like yapping about Tucker Kraft on this podcast in the offseason, it felt like we were yapping about Jordan Mason. Yep. Nate, you probably chipped in a little bit. I know I certainly talked about him. Justin Boone was very excited. We were all very excited about Jordan Mason's potential opportunity. And the opportunity for him to take over as the guy came earlier than I expected. Unfortunately, it was because of injury to Aaron Jones, but Jones has, he's an older back. that does happen. And now I feel like you're seeing that full realization of what this run game could be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tough in the first couple weeks with JJ McCarthy. I want to come back to him and the Carson Wentz of it all. But again, with Wentz in week 3, it just felt like the train was a little bit more on the tracks. Like, not like Carson Wentz was doing anything. Oh my God, they've got another Sam Darnold on their hands or anything like that. But it's just the train's on the track. It feels a little bit more buttoned up, and because of that, I think you could see a better expression of the run game. Obviously, they're in a super positive game script, but I do think the offensive line kind of doing some more varied things in the run game was what they were hoping for. I think you saw that in week 3, and it makes me really excited about Jordan Mason as a guy that, frankly, as long as Aaron Jones is not out there, which he's going to be a few more weeks, like he went on IR, he's an every week fantasy starter to me, no question about it.
I look at their early down run rates, and I think that's the thing about Kevin O'Connell. We just talked about self-awareness or self-scouting of your personnel. I'm talking about maybe in a bad way with the Falcons right now, kind of thinking what they have here. I also think they kind of knew what they had with McCarthy, and they knew he needed reps. He didn't have a lot of reps coming out of college. They knew he's going to take time and everything. But and you could tell right away it was very, it was on the rails. And that was where my Vikings kind of like preseason prediction was like, if you just keep it on the rails, this should be fine. And now it's like they're asking Carson Wentz to be the guy to keep it on the rails, which I think is just a oxymoron, like to the max, that I'm very, very excited to see play out for the next couple of weeks. And I guess we get to see it in Dublin this weekend. But I just look, they're early down, and this is not tied into win probability or anything, just early down design run rate. So 2 of the 3 highest early down run rates for the Vikings since Kevin O'Connell took over as head coach is week 1 against the Bears. That was number 3. And then last week against the Bengals in week 2. So they were 56.8% run rate on first and second down against the Bears, 60% early down run rate. Yes, they control most of the game, yada, yada, yada. But still, they've only topped 50% like a dozen times since he's taken over as a coach. And now they've had 2 of the top 3, including one at 60%. Like, that's the thing, is like the usage. That's what you want. You want a bell cow back. Right now, to me, that's what Jordan Mason is as far as in fantasy terms. And I do think it's going to be productive. It's going to be like the high end parts of this offense, I think, are going to be taken away. Like, I don't think Wentz is going to have some of the privileges that Darnold has, which sounds so funny, but I don't think he is. You want as little on Wentz's plate as possible. That's why RPOs are his best thing. So I do think that it's going to be very kind of point and shoot for him passing game wise, which will lead maybe not the ball getting spread out as much, which is curious about Addison. But I do think that the run game is going to be just that. I keep using the term consistent beat, the steady beat of this offense. Like, it is like this. They know what they are. I'm really convinced of that, especially upon rewatch.
Yeah, it's very different than the team we talked about yesterday on 301, the Raiders, how I think they expect it to be like a consistent singles and doubles run game, but they're like, not even getting singles. They're not even getting on base. And so then they got to try to hit home runs every pass play, but that's really all they could do because they don't have they only have Jacoby Myers as a consistent singles and doubles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that feels like a mess. This, I think, actually could be real.
I'm a little more optimistic about it in a weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only because this is a quarterback. Yeah, right. I know. 6 teams in 6 years, as our buddy Bill Barnwell put out there last week. Like, it's crazy. But honestly, the last time he had any success recently was that one Week 18 start with the Rams, and this is obviously that was in 2023. This is obviously similar offensive language. That's why he's able to come in August and like kind of hop right into the chair and keep it going here. And yeah, I am really curious about your point about how spread out this thing can be, because they do theoretically have a lot of mouths to feed. They've got T.J. Hawkinson, they've got Jordan Addison, Adam Thielen is still on the roster. God, that trade is aging pretty well for the Carolina Panthers, even if they need some wide receiver help. Like, it's getting a 4th round pick or whatever for whatever Thielen's given the Vikings sounds pretty good. But honestly, like, if I was them, I'd be like, yeah, just throw this thing to Justin Jefferson as much as possible on these RPOs, which, like we were talking about yesterday with Ray Garvin, with Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart, typically when you're running those RPOs, the first read is getting the ball over and over and over and over again. And that would not be too bad if it's number 18 in Minnesota and it being the guy that gets those.
And I think that's how it's going to go. Like, I think that's, again, Kevin O'Connell is very good at this. He is. He's earned a lot of my respect. I know he gets a lot of accolades, and that could be exhausting for some people. They're kind of like, okay, enough. I will say that some people are going like, well, that's why Daniel Jones is succeeding, because he spent 9 months with Kevin O'Connell. It's like, okay, everyone chill out with this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I get there's some schooling here, but come on. Otherwise, McCarthy would have came out of the gate flying, like if this was really totally true. So I no, but I do think he's earned a lot of respect, and it's justified because of knowing what works. And I do think that, okay, if Jefferson is going to get so many targets, it's not going to be throw more and now throw to Hawkinson and Addison. I hate to say it's going to be, we're going to cover 2 a bunch, run it. We're going to cover 2 a bunch, run it. And then let our funky defense go to work. And again, I don't think you have to twist his arm to do this. I think this is what he's always been trying to get to. But again, he knows the formula. If you look at Sam Darnold last year, they had so much faith in him of we just took a sack or we had a negative play. Pin the grenade, deep ball. They were just chucking it. And I think they'll kind of do a Diet Coke tempered down version of that, where they're willing to kind of push the ball with Wentz in a very on the rails version. I envision a lot of over post combos, nothing exotic, nothing crazy, but it's just enough to create space in this offense. But that's what the boon that Jefferson provides for an offense is defenses have to respect him on every single down. And that draws, the Vikings have found ways to, now it was auxiliary targets. Now this year it's the run game. And I think, Mason's going to be the beneficiary this year as opposed to Addison and Hawkinson.
This week
look at that pull
matchup with, I know. This week 4 matchup against the Steelers against that defense, it's kind of on my radar. That will be definitely a fun one to watch here. This poll we have from the YouTube chat. If you're watching along with us, you can participate in the chat. Who would you rather have rest of season for fantasy? Jordan Mason or Ashton Genty? Jordan Mason runs away with the poll at 62%. I'll weigh in here and say for the next 3-4 weeks, definitely I'm going to be ranking Jordan Mason higher than Ashton Genty. Sorry about it if you took Ashton Genty in the first round, but the reality is we've got a bell cow back on a well-designed offense with a good offensive line, even if there are some injuries right now, a good offensive line. And then the other one is a bell cow back on a bad team with a bad offense, with maybe the worst offensive line in the league. Sorry, doesn't matter who the name on the back of the jersey is, brass tacks, that is what it is. Over the course of the season, because Aaron Jones is going to be back, theoretically, but he is going to be back maybe in 4 weeks or so. I think I'd still maybe give the edge to Genty, but the next 3-4 weeks or so, you're ranking Jordan Mason higher, and I don't even really think I'm going to give that a second thought, as crazy as that is. Life comes at you fast here in the NFL.
You have a famous line of just draft from good offenses. Just and I know the Vikings,
good players from good teams.
That's it. And I know the Vikings aren't perfect right now, but still the ecosystem is still that leads itself to good stuff, as opposed to the Raiders, who are trying to find their way right now and trying to figure out exactly what everything is, because it's weird right now.
That's a very nice way of putting it. Very diplomatic.
I know.
One ecosystem that I think I'm kind of mixed on, because their best player, speaking of good players on good teams, is going to miss a large chunk of time here. That is the Dallas Cowboys. But you have been excited about what you've seen from the run game, Nate.
Yeah, I have. This is the one of my more disappointing fantasy things, and we joked about it recently, but where I ended up getting no shares, 0 shares of Javonte Williams, a couple of Jadon Blue in some dynasty leagues, but nothing in this backfield, even though they brought in Clayton Adams from Arizona, who is now shown in 2 places to be one of the best run game designers in the NFL. He should be getting as much praise as Hank Fraley from the Lions. Maybe that's just my world where I'm touting offensive line coaches and run game coordinators, but he is just doing a great job with this run game. I mentioned that the Vikings were first in early down success rate for running back runs. Cowboys are in second, and that is there's proof in the pudding. It doesn't even matter with the injuries that they've had. They lost Cooper Beebe. Now they've lost Tyler Booker, their first round pick, who is playing well and a perfect fit in this offense. But man, Tyler Guyton is looking way more consistent. It's crazy what good coaching can do and really just get a really talented guy going in the right direction. Tyler Smith is one of the best guards in the game. And Terrence Steele looks much better than he has recently. He's battled injuries and everything, but he looks so much better. But they know what they are. They run a very varied run game. A former, I believe, Nerding Out member, Hunter Lepke, I believe we talked about him before in this segment.
Last year.
He is a weapon in this offense because of blocking and how well he can move and how many things he can do in the backfield. But man, George Pickens has had some great blocks as well. But using him, like he's always been overrated as a blocker because he's always like his biggest blocks were on the backside and stuff. But actually, like this is the most committed he's ever looked to doing it. Actually committed. And so I even though they've had these injuries, great point. And he's not. But now he's the number one again.
Contract, yeah.
Who knows? So maybe he's like, hey, and this is my time. I'm getting 15 targets. But this run game is real. And it's one of those where I wish they actually had more juice in the backfield. Like Javonte is doing a fine job, but that's what he is. He's fine. But I really do wish they injected this with somebody else because there's some really good scheming going on, really good use of personnel. And once their line gets healthy, hopefully in about a month, man, this could take another leap. Like, because they got a lot of talent going on right now.
I love how even as you're, you're here saying that you're complimenting the run game, all that stuff, and you're still taking a shot at Javonte Williams. You're still saying you wish that you still wish that there was someone else here. That's great. Yeah, but I'm with you that it has been a good run game. I mean, shoot, the funny part about this is we talked about this a lot with the Broncos last year that we just wanted someone else in that ecosystem, right? We just get a different back in there, anybody but Javonte Williams. And this run game is going to be so much better. On their just running back runs so far this year, the Cowboys are second in success rate. Overall, you had second early down success rate. They're second overall. The Denver Broncos are 19th. And if you look at first and second down, I can do that here real quick. But I mean, yeah, they're 19th overall. Early down success rate, they're a little bit better. They're 15th. So okay. They didn't get any worse, or they didn't get any better by like.
No, that's exactly where they were last year.
Making a JK Dobbins. maybe RJ Harvey. I know the RJ Harvey bros in fantasy are dying for this to end up being RJ Harvey's job at some point. And I mean, I think it's got to be at some point, but that's kind of a separate conversation. It's just funny that it was just get anybody other than Javonte in Denver, and we're going to take off in this run game. And then instead we've got Javonte in Dallas with your boy Clayton Adams, and he's been one of the absolute best picks you could have made this year. One of the best picks, and none of us dumbasses in fantasy even wanted to give it a second thought.
Listen to my own advice. It's just like crazy. I can't believe it. It's just because what you said, it was like I have a problem with this sometimes, whereas I look at what I think the talent level is as opposed to what the situation is and what it could be. So it's like I miss some of these flash ones where it's like this guy's just taking advantage of it. They're second in yards before contact per rush right now on running back runs. 2 yards right now. The only ones in front of them are the Lions, who I think we know have a good run game and everything. And the Ravens are in third. So it's just like that's how it looks, and it's just so well designed. This is why I really liked the Cardinals of the last couple of years, was how well designed their run game was and what they were doing. So it's kind of cool to see it kind of translate here. He's an offense coordinator technically, but Schottenheimer's calling plays and everything. That was just given. Yeah. It's all about titles with coaches. It's same role, but title bump to coordinator. That means pay bump, especially in Dallas. So I'm very curious. I wish they were fully healthy, especially up front, because that could be a real, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, of course, we haven't talked about him, but him being out as well. But I guess going against a Packers defense, like that could have been a really, really fun hoss fight going on. They're kind of going through one of these years, but there's some good stuff going on in this offense. I got to give Adams and Schottenheimer some credit, and Dak Prescott, who is just playing uber confident right now. Might be a buzzsaw this weekend, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, running into that Packers defense, obviously Micah Parsons coming back here, that's going to be tough. But what is your level of concern? You mentioned the situation, obviously. I think that's the biggest thing with – I think Javonte's playing well, but the situation is awesome. It's still, though, I typically don't love to draft these and be exposed to in fantasy these type of running backs with bad defenses, right, because of the game scripts, even though Javonte has been active in the pass game for sure. On an offense that might be mid, and I am a little bit nervous about what this looks like without CeeDee Lamb from an entire offensive perspective, because he's one of those guys. He's one of the best receivers in football. You take one of those guys out of the mix here, especially somebody who's so alignment versatile, deployment versatile. And I mentioned this yesterday with Ray, but they're not using George Pickens in any sort of varied way. He's like truly purely just the X receiver. He's like Romeo Dobbs. He's like Keon Coleman. He's like Kayshon Boutte. Just X on the line, outside, see you later. Maybe they move him around more now that Lamb is gone, but I think I got to see that to believe it, because he's mostly just a pure X. He's not a zone beater. He's not a consistent guy in terms of finding those windows. So are you nervous at all that this could be, we've already seen the best of this Lamb will be back, but for the next month or so, we're going to look at kind of a slog period here for Dallas, and that might impact this run game's efficiency a little bit.
I do. I think it'll be more averagey kind of an offense. I don't think it'll totally crater, but I do think that where the targets are going to get spread is interesting, because Pickens would get a lot of respect in cover 2 when he was with the Steelers, even though that pass game couldn't do anything, because just like that discussion with Jefferson, they were like, all right, let's run cover 2, basically double covering him if he's just going to be the X. All right, now who's going to beat us? Who you got? Like who's going to be a Skoranek? Like that's basically what teams would do. And now what's so beautiful, I thought, with this pairing with Lamb and Pickens was, well, you can't play cover 2 because that means Lamb is going to eat against a linebacker or a slot. Right. Like, that's just, he can do that all day. We got to see that in week 1. Did the yards just honestly change?
Did that number just go down?
Yeah, it did. As we were talking about it, Pickens' fantasy protection went down a yard.
They're hearing on conference the projections where the projections lords are. I don't know where they are. I don't know who it is. They are hearing our conversation right now. They're like, let's dock it by a yard. That's great.
Hilarious.
Never seen that before.
I haven't either. That was really funny. So I do think it is going to be more slog. I was trying to look up their schedule as well, because it is, because honestly, CD is what makes this offense go. That is Dak. That they have so many plays that are targeted to CD. Pickens does not. It's not a 1-for-1 match. Pickens and CD are so different in a lot of ways. Like, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's like CD, working those inside routes, those double moves. They call them Haas juke concepts, where he's working over the middle against a linebacker. Pickens isn't. He's more linear, and just as an athlete, that he's not as fluid moving in and out. And that's why I liked the Pickens and Dak combo, was because of just that route tree match what Dak liked. But that's the thing, is like, I think teams are going to go, all right, cover 2, dare you to run over and over, because we're just not going to get beat by that. So that can be interesting, especially when the offensive line isn't as burly right now as well. So I wanted to nerd out about them because I got to give them props, but it's like, might be a second half year resurgence for them, or maybe once everybody gets healthy. It seems like early November once everybody gets healthy.
Yeah, this feels like a good time to talk about the stock, because it might be the sell high moment for the stock. So that's sort of where,
because they go Packers, Jets, Panthers, Commanders. Okay, but man, once they come back, they go Cardinals, Raiders, Eagles. Eagles are hurting right now. You can run on the Eagles right now. Okay, I don't know. That's interesting. You could thread this needle. There's kind of like a perfect time. Yeah, there's like a perfect time to sell and buy here. Like, you might be able to maybe buy back in a couple of weeks or something like that. I don't know. Just got to time this one up. Yeah. But no, I do think it's going to be more of an average unit maybe the next month. But I do think the highs of this offense are even – you were pretty bullish on it, actually, but a little bit higher than maybe even I was expecting. Good bones. I always use that term, but there's good structure right here with this offense.
Well, a lot of that good structure is because your boy Clayton Adams is there. The team that he left is the Arizona Cardinals, and we regrettably have to discuss them on the other side of this quick break. We will get into that right after this. All right, we are back. Nate, I'm actually not picking on you about this Cardinals thing. I think I do need to make that clear, because I know that you are the Arizona Cardinals #1 fan. The only reason I'm saying that I'm like, regrettably, we have to talk about the Cardinals is because yesterday on the show with Ray, he made a passing like kind of comment about Marvin Harrison and like what's going on there. And I said, nope, I'm not doing it. Because of his mistakes in last week's game, I am taking a week off of Marvin Harrison Jr., defense and discourse. I can't do it this week. I got to take a 1 week hiatus from talking about the guy and defending him and pointing pointing out the Kyler Murray of it all and the offense of it all, and because he just brutal. And I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it when he's going to put the football on the carpet like that. I'm not going to do it this week. And then in real time, as I'm ending that show and promoting this show, I'm like, and we talk about Thursday Night Football, which the Cardinals are great, yeah. So I became very upset that I wanted to take this 1 week hiatus, and I'm not going to do. I'm going to try to get through this conversation without sitting here and caping up for Marvin Harrison Jr. after a week like that. I'm going to try not to do it, but that is why I'm frustrated by the Cardinals conversation. It's not about you, and I just wanted to get that on the record for you and everybody listening and watching.
No, it's fine. Trust me, I'm sick of talking about it too and watching it and figuring out what the hell's going on. No, so I didn't take it personally because I've pivoted from a Cardinals offense guy to a Cardinals defense guy. Have you seen them? They're pretty good right now. But
they're pretty cool.
They're hanging in. They're pretty cool. They're hanging in there right now. But no, I'm with you. There is a lot of frustrating aspects of this team. I think really what's really feeling off is the run game's feeling off. Even before we talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. and his outrageous drop.
I want to get in that
wide
first.
Open without 20 yards apart around him. Just the run game feels off. I just mentioned Clayton Adams, but it stinks. It really does stink that James Conner's hurt. But like, I'm curious to see what Trey Benson does with bigger role. I've kind of gotten cooler on Benson as a rusher, than what I was maybe as a prospect, but I still think he's can be more than capable. And I've seen a couple nice runs so far in the system, but I do think that run game is taking a step back. And I think, again, this is the offense that's what they're going to thrive themselves on. They're going to play a bunch of tight ends. They're going to pound the rock. And there were some nice moments against the 49ers, but it just really isn't that true strength. It's not as explosive as it was last year. It's not like kind of just being that jab that this offense needs. And really, the passing game, we already knew has kind of a problem with explosive plays. They don't have the fastest skill guys in the world. They got a lot of short intermediate guys, and it's not like a lot of guys that can run after the catch as well. And sure enough, they're 24th in explosive pass rate right now. So that's one of those things has to be better. Kyler has just been a little too inconsistent. There's been some nice moments, but then there's also times where he's just passing up open guys. And that's just Kyler. We talk about it. It's like, he's kind of like, you can win with them, but there's just moments that he's going to have some bad plays. But then this offense has some brutal drops. The Marvin Harrison Jr. one, the Eric DeMarco, the third string running back one, into the red zone that would have walk in touch. DeMarco, sorry, DeMarco. But Texas TCU, I think. For some reason, he sticks on this roster. They just love him. But just watching this team, it's just like there's just a half step off. Like maybe a run play where a guy loses. Maybe Kyler's not seeing a guy wide open. Maybe there's a drop that happens. I will say Marvin Harrison Jr. has drawn a lot of PI so far this year. I think he's already drawn 4 of them this season, maybe 3 for a lot of yards, which is one positive, I would say. If you're not going to connect on some back shoulders, at least get some DPIs out of it. But I do think this offense is feeling a lot more averagey without any kind of teeth or venom of real fear going on.
I think that's really well summed up. And it's funny because it's funny. We're talking about this Cardinals offense and the Falcons offense. And maybe I said it to you, but I know at one point I did say it kind of irritates me that both of these teams just completely stood pat in terms of their skill position players, because I think they all have, I think these guys are good. Obviously, I'm not doing Harrison Jr. defense, I promise, but I do think I think this is a good collection of skill position players. I think Atlanta obviously has a good collection of skill position players, but sometimes you just want to throw like one more thing in here. Like we're talking about the damn Falcons don't play 11 personnel anymore. Maybe if you had one more like really talented receiver and not Casey Washington, Ray McLeod, whatever, you might be tempted to do it. If you had a speed element here, like I'm still seeing Greg Dortch, running vertical routes in this offense. Okay, like enough already with that. So these are the two teams I just wish added one more wrinkle from like a pass catcher standpoint, even if it was just going to be kind of a role player, kind of a sacrificial guy. I think that would have, especially in Arizona, definitely would have helped. And I think you're feeling that so far. And with Arizona in the run game, I kind of want to get into that because obviously Trey Benson's been a big talking point this week. James Conner, unfortunately, out for the season. Trey Benson is if he was available on your waiver wire, the smart asses in the comments first would be like, well, I want to get into that league, not in my league. Okay, congratulations to you for playing in the good league. But then, really, if he was unavailable on the waiver wire, it's the empty the budget, spend it all on that guy because he's going to be a starting running back the rest of the season. But what are our expectations for a guy like Trey Benson? Because he's very different than James Conner. He's not that consistent, tempo type runner, the success rate type player. I think he's a little bit more boom bust, and I just think maybe it's a brain drain with Clayton Adams, and maybe also, Nate, this offensive line talent's like not that good. To me, ultimately, I just don't think it's that good, and that's part of the weirdness of this team is there are just so many things that they want to be that don't fit with certain parts of the personnel. And that feels especially pronounced in the run game where the offensive line talent is just kind of, I think, below average at best.
No, I'm with you. That's the thing. It's hard. You and I feel like I've had a lot of discussions about Kyler, and it's just because it's like there's so much good that he does bring, and that's why it's not like, oh, Kyler sucks, and it's like, but he's not outright. Yeah. Like he'll never probably grow into a top 10 quarterback ever. Like I'm fine. I feel safe to say that, but it's somewhere in the middle where his qualities, he does have real qualities, especially throwing like outbreakers. His creation is great. But the thing is, there's a lot of times I watch him, I'm like, oh, there's Kyler scrambling again. And then I watch it back on film. And then it's because a guard lost and is right in his face right away. And he's making a miss and making a play. And I'm like, oh, that's actually really good. But at first you're just thinking he's bailing. But then there's times he does bail. And then it's just like, yeah, exactly. That guy was open. So that's why it's so hard. Because it's like, people are like, oh, he bails all the time. It's like, well, sometimes he has to. And that's because I do think that this is a classic, like our philosophy, what they want to do is be this gritty, run the ball. That's why I dug them for the last couple of years. I was like, oh, they're doing some really cool stuff. They're maximizing their talent. But then they're like, yeah, we maximize our talent. It's like, well, add more talent. Like that just because you got the most out of this group doesn't mean you should just, like you say, stand pat. I'm totally with you. I remember during the draft process, some people started mocking Matthew Golden to them. I was like, they don't need a receiver. They need defense. They need another lineman, all this stuff. And then I started marinating going, well, actually, they do need some speed. Yeah, they do need somebody to open it up for MHJ, like and Trey McBride. And actually, that would really work. Even if he's the number 3, that would really work. And so I started kind of like digging that. And then they didn't even just add anybody. They didn't add some day 3 guy to take the top off. They didn't. And there's so many of those guys in this draft. We've talked about it all the time. Like there's a lot of the guys went in the 4th round. Well, just that speed element, because Kyler will throw that. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He likes to have true ball winners. DeAndre Hopkins is his best type of receiver that you could have. And that's back shoulder throws and on those types of things. That's not, that's Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game. We've talked about this. It's not a perfect fit. But yeah, it feels very tight again without having the boon of the run game kind of doing the heavy lifting. So a lot's going on Kyler, and he's actually doing fine success rate wise and everything. But that's not what this offense wants. This offense wants him to be more boom bust and the run game to be more steady. And now it's becoming inverse, where it's becoming the run game, I think, is going to become boom bust. I think that's an astute observation you had about Trey Benson, is that he is more boom bust as a runner, more explosive, but kind of vision's a little iffy. But then Kyler is going to have to be more consistent. So it's going to be a curious kind of philosophy, chemistry change of this offense that I'm of course, curious to watch, because I'm the person that watches the Falcons or the card. I almost said the Falcons, which was a Freudian slip based on my old watching habits of poorly constructed teams that have interesting run games. But now I'm watching the Cardinals this time around every single week.
Do you know off the top of your head where the Arizona Cardinals rank on their running back runs and on early downs, 1st and 2nd?
Oh, like success rate wise, they're bottom 5, aren't they? Yeah. They're like 28th.
Yeah, they're 30th.
30th. Yep.
30th.
I knew it was bad.
30th. They're 31st overall if all downs. So really get better on the early downs. And explosive.
They can't win that way.
Explosive play.
You can't be a bad run team if your whole entire system is built on the run game. At least that's my problem. and like they're 13th in explosive play rate on their early down running back runs. Like, so that's the thing, is they've gotten some big plays, and I think Benson's a big part of that. Like I think if you're just looking at the running back metrics, you're looking at like yards per carry and yards over expected. I think Benson actually looks a little bit better than Conner this year. And like
we just don't know. We can't say this for sure because he's not going to play the rest of the season. But like maybe Connor hit an age wall. I don't know, whatever. But I think that's going to be the temptation of this is a good run game, and now they're adding a more explosive player on top of it. But if Benson can't prove to be that kind of consistent runner on the early downs, like that's going to end up being problematic for an offense that absolutely can't play that way. Because then to get into the passing game, if I was a Cardinals fan, I would just this would like piss me off. Like honestly, this would irritate me because with anything with football, and we talked about this yesterday with Jacksonville, like how disingenuous it is to try to just blame like one person or party with the Brian Thomas Jr. stuff right now. And with Arizona, it's the same things over and over again. And I think they're all like trying, like I see this about Cardinals fans on my timeline. They're like trying to find the boogeyman. It's actually Harrison sucks, or actually Drew Petzing is number one villain. Kyler Murray, we got to get rid of him and move on to somebody else. But then there's no consensus of it because I don't think any of these guys are bad. They probably could be better. All of them. Harrison definitely could be better. Kyler could be better. Petzing probably could push some different buttons, but they're all kind of fine. But it's not fine it's fine in the aggregate. It's not fine down to down. And it's that variability of it all. And I just wonder if the run game can't be what it was the last couple of years. Is that like the Jenga piece here? You take that out, you take the James Conner out of it all, and then suddenly we start to see more things crumble. Again, I'm being alarmist here today. I'm fear mongering, as fair. The YouTube chat likes to say, but this is where my mind is at right now.
No, it's very fair because there's still like, I understand, like even with the Marvin Harrison Jr. usage, like I understand why they put him in certain spots, but now I also want to go like, well, that's not where Kyler throws it. He's not going to be a backside dig thrower. Yeah. He's not, that's not his thing. He just doesn't do it. And it's not like Kyler can get 1 to 2 on a lot of concepts, but any concept that asks him to get to a backside dig, which is typically a number 3 and requires you kind of like to hang, then work back over the middle. He just doesn't do that. You know what he's really good at? Throwing stick routes, throwing out routes. Stick route is just like an slot out route. Everybody runs them. Yep. He's a money on those.
Trey McBride runs a ton of them.
And they're all day. It is automatic, 6 yards a pop every single time. Put Marvin Harrison Jr. to run a stick route. Put him right there, run a stick route. Run a stick route with him. That's all I ask. Just one stick route with Marvin Harrison Jr. in the slot or at the number 3 spot where a tight end lines up. One of those. That's to me seems like a simple thing. If you want to make a more consistent passing game, you want to work to Kyler's strengths, but then you get into the trickle down. Okay, Marvin Harrison Jr. is down the slot. Do we trust Michael Wilson to take the top off? Do we trust you just mentioned him? Do you take any of these other guys that they have on this roster, Zay Jones, to take the top off? Zay
Jones in the year 2025. I mean, come on.
Again, I love that you keep bringing it up though, but it is like, I don't hate any of these individual things, but they just don't work perfectly in unison. This is not Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and the Rams offense with Brandon Cooks, where everything's like, oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yep. That's exact roles with everybody. Now it's more like, oh, I love this guy, but not here. I love this guy, but not here. There's a lot of fineness, but just the consistency is just going to be a big ask. I'm just curious. I'm curious if they know that, or how they pivot and everything. So far, they have little tweaks, but there's just not been enough where I'm like, oh, he's got it. Where I just more am like resigned to more of a mid-tier offense, I think. But I do, like I said, I do think the defense is really interesting right now. So I do think that they're going to be live for the rest of the season and everything. They're not going to be bad. It's just, I think there's going to be the frustrating swings, like you mentioned.
That's the thing, is that there's going to be those frustrating swings. They'll be in these games. That's great. And yeah, just from, again, brass tacks fantasy wise, specifically in Dynasty, Harrison is a guy that just every time I log into my Dynasty rankings, I keep finding other guys to put over him, And it sucks because I really liked him as a prospect. He was just so clean, and I really do love his route running, and I really love his ability to get open, specifically on the routes that I think really matter for number 1 wide receivers. Mm-hmm. But the problem is just the situation's not. I don't know when the situation is going to change. It might never change. And then again, he leaves plays on the field. That's the thing. It's like, as wonderful as he is as a route technician, he's just kind of a little bit of a mess at the catch point. Like he's flashed a couple of he's like, yeah, you can even see in that one drop, like the still frame of it, his eyes are not even on the ball. And he's constantly, and again, I loathe to I loathe to shout out Matt Waldman. No, I don't. I love shouting. Waldman's my guy, but he was the one who really said this about him as a prospect, that he's constantly attacking things with like an underhanded catch technique, and he's never fully extending and like plucking the ball, especially like in NFL type situations as a prospect. I kind of said that was a minor concern. It's been a huge concern, and now I think it's like in his head a little bit. It's become a lot bigger of a problem here in the second season, which is just, it makes it tough. And I think
there's some optimism real quick. Oh, sorry.
Sure. I might need it.
They're 8th in EPA per play right now and 9th in EPA per drive. Like it's that's why I can't fully sell them, but I just like, but it's so like, they still do a lot of fine things. I think it's just give me to the firework factory. I'm sorry to like break you off there, but it's just like, I'm with you. It's like
the best.
Just give me a little more, just a little bit more. Put some candles in this cake, please.
All right, this is a good, since I'm clearly way too doom and gloom and like my feelings are in this is a good time to take another break, because we do actually have to talk about the game they're about to play in, because that is tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football. So we'll talk a little more Cardinals, and we'll talk about a team I'm actually really enjoying watching and how they're getting the best out of their former first round Ohio State wide receiver. We will do that right on the other side of this quick break. All right, we are back. Let's talk Thursday Night Football. This should be. I'm being so negative about these damn Cardinals, but this should be a pretty fun game. NFC West game. We got Seahawks. We got Cardinals. Pretty decent total on it, 43.5. The Seahawks are 1.5 point road favorites. And you know, for all the doom and gloom I had about the Cardinals, I really love what's going on in Seattle right now. I think his team pretty cool, buttoned up operation. I'll give you credit on this. You're the one who called them the winners of the NFC West for Football 301. I do love the way Jackson Smith and Jigba is dealing right now. Hey, this is why sometimes guys break out in the third year. Maybe Harrison's the third year breakout guy. Wouldn't that be perfect? The best wide receiver prospect since this, that, and the other, whatever people want to say, ends up being like the classic third year breakout receiver. That would be rather funny. But yeah, JSN's taking his game to another level here. I think the run game, it's been better than it was. There's still some nits I think you can pick, but I have faith that can get better over the course of the year. The defense is really good, and Nate, I almost feel like Sam Darnold we're just like not even talking about anymore. He went from a guy that everybody hyper fixated on week to week, you oligarchs, the Sam Darnold oligarchs, that you guys had your moment in the sun, and now he's just kind of along for the ride there for a good Seahawks team.
Yeah, and chucking it. He has the highest explosive play rate, third highest explosive pass rate so far this season. He's on pinning that thing and chucking it. And this is why he went to a Kubiak, or a Shanahan. Is like, this offensive system fits him perfectly. Get the throw on the move a bunch, get to kind of, point and shoot on a lot of the plays. They don't use play action at a super high rate, but he does push the ball in play action. He's averaging the most yards per attempt on play action passes this year. Which is like, oh, no kidding, Kubiak offense. But it's like, yeah, this is what I was hoping to see, but this is an interesting battle with the Cardinals, but really just focused on the Seahawks. Of course, a ton of zone runs. Their offensive line is way improved. Gray Zabel, their left guard, is phenomenal. Like, he's already a hit. You can tell. Charles Cross with some steadiness next to him. It's like, oh yeah, you're like a Pro Bowl quality left tackle. They're figuring out the other guys. Abe Lucas is healthy, playing well. They're, the center, Sundell, does some nice things, but can get overmatched sometimes, especially him in the right guard. But I do think it's way better than it was last year, which was probably the worst or second worst offensive line with, or maybe bottom 3, bottom 4. Now I'm thinking about it, but along with the Vikings that it ended up. So Sam Darnold was probably used to that. So even if it's average, this is a big improvement for him. But we talk about the JSN usage is kind of what I envisioned. I mean, maybe the high end of what I thought the range would be. You can tell they're figuring out or getting the auxiliary receivers involved, including AJ Barner, Torrey Horton, a Football 301 favorite, and reception perception favorite, I believe. And also and even Cooper Kupp is getting used as kind of a tight end, like a true tight end now. And so he has a nice role, even if fantasy, he's not very fantasy relevant, maybe, sporadic touchdown or everything. But man, this offense is truly like, it's like really coming together. They still have some weaknesses. There's still going to be some imperfections in the run game, but Darnold's being a good operator, and really just this whole system's kind of clicking.
Oh, man, yeah, it's just so well put together. I like how you highlighted Cooper Kupp as kind of a almost like a tight end. When they signed him, I remember thinking, I don't know if I said this to you or if it was, James Coe's the other Sam Darnold oligarch in my life. So I can't remember if it was one of you two guys I said this to last year, but I was like, I don't think Cooper's got much left to give. Like, I think they need another guy on the outside, which we'll talk about Torrey Horton here in a second, kind of becoming that guy. But Cooper Kupp could just be, hey, when Sam Darnold starts to go on the fritz because there's some pressure, like he knows he's got a reliable guy out there in the flats to just dump that thing off to. And there's not been a lot of production, but a couple of moments like that is just helpful to keep Sam Darnold coloring inside the lines, which is basically what you just want from him in this system. Torrey Horton, did you see Clint Kubiak's comparison for him today yesterday at the press conference? Clint Kubiak was asked, what rookie, is there any rookies that remind you of Torrey Horton? And he gives kind of a smile and he's like, well, I'm not going to say the player, but very similar. And he goes in and talks about preparation, dedication to the game, the way they study, all that stuff. And then he eventually says, well, the player's Justin Jefferson, which, of course, then it gets yeah.
Oh, I thought there was going to be some cool one, like some old Texans player or something. Like,
No. So, of course, it gets aggregated as well, you compare it to Justin Jefferson. But truthfully, it was, just a highlight of how he prepares and like works at the game and is dedicated to it, which I think we've seen so far. I like the role that they've got him in right now is kind of that speed vertical guy. Scores a touchdown last week, has a special teams touchdown. How do you, either of these two offenses, do you see like a mismatch for one of the other in how they can attack these defenses? Because both these defenses have been good, and I kind of think this is going to be a lower scoring game, even if there's some exciting offensive players. But two good defenses here. Do you see like either side of the ball a potential mismatch for this?
That an auxiliary receiver like Horton would be one, because just the Cardinals have some corner injuries. Max Melton's playing, but Garrett Williams is on IR. And Will Johnson's battling an injury and hasn't practiced, I think, this week as well. Rookie standout, but has an injury history. So down a couple of starting corners. So I'm going to look at who are your secondary receivers. That's kind of my natural eyes go-to. And while the Cardinals' pass defense has been a little shoddy so far, but they really haven't let up as many explosive passes as I thought, maybe on just first eye test. They're allowing the 7th lowest explosive pass rate according to Next Gen Stats, but they have hurt corners. So that's where I'm looking, again, auxiliary receivers, because the Cardinals have been really good against the run this year, which has kind of been, they added a whole bunch of new faces. Josh Sweat's been phenomenal. Dalvin Tomlinson's been good. Calais Campbell, the ageless Calais Campbell's been good. Young guys are stepping up. Darius Robinson, Jordan Burge, some other guys they have been playing well as well. Baron Browning, Mac Wilson. I could just go on and on. I'm watching way too much Cardinals. But their run defense has been stout. They give issues. This entire defensive structure, how they use Budda Baker, is to use Budda Baker to insert against Kubiak Shanahan offenses. Like, they're very good against zone runs. They have allowed only a 30% success rate to zone runs this year, according to FTN. Seahawks, of course, Kubiak, top 10 in usage on zone runs, top 10 in EPA per rush on zone runs, middling success rate. Kind of like all their numbers right now. But this Cardinals defense is pretty good against that because they're built this way. This is how they use Budda Baker. The inserts. It's pretty kind of cool. It's very unique. I know you're supposed to just say unique, but it is very unique, like how they use their guys. But so to me, though, that's the natural advantage, is trying to find someone to go in against one of these corners that's a backup. And to me, that is Torrey Horton, because he's given secondary players, backup corners and second corners, a lot of issues with his speed and ball skills so far.
No question. Way better than a 5th round pick. So kind of got to adjust that in your mind a little when we're talking about him as an impact guy. Just an awesome.
Late second, early third grade, man.
Same. That's exactly what I had it to.
I know. I remember.
I had him priority.
That was one of my favorite processes, because we both scouted him like individually, like in the same couple of weeks. Then we like kind of got back together and talk about him. And I was like, pretty good, right? Like pretty good stuff.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I think Seattle wins this game. Yeah. But I like your Torrey Horton over 22.5 receiving yards as well for all of the reasons there. So it's very low. So who do you think wins this game, real quick?
I do think Seahawks do, because I just think they're in a better position right now. Cardinals are still figuring out their way, while I think the Seahawks offense kind of knows what they are. And then I also think the defense is a true strength. Even, I don't know if Devin Witherspoon is playing yet, who's a slot. But man, this defensive front is so good right now, and they're so smart. So I think this is Seahawks right now, even though I do think maybe a couple weeks down the road it could be a little bit more interesting.
All right, that is going to do it from us today. Thanks again to Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season. And don't forget to check out Toyota's game day giveaways for your chance to win. Shout out to Nate Tice. Hell of a show. He will be back next week, of course. Make sure you subscribe to Football 301 wherever you get your podcast, and you're reading all of Nate's great work on the website. Tomorrow, this show, Justin Boone will be back with us to preview the entire Week 4 slate that's going to be live at 5 p.m. Eastern. Until then, we are out.